Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to a weight loss hypnosis session that was created for a lady that made the challenge of losing weight very difficult to win. And she didn't do this deliberately. It came from a good intention of desiring to have the body shape that she wanted relatively quickly. And that's not unusual. That's what makes diets and particularly fad diets and extreme diets very appealing, is this idea of instantaneous or rapid weight loss. A lot of the advertising and marketing that comes with weight loss are promises at how much weight you will lose in so many weeks. So you'll lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks and all this nonsense. Now, one of the key things that makes that appealing is that it has the promise of a desirable outcome quickly. But in doing so, what can happen is that it makes the game unwinnable. So this particular lady had a unconscious routine that before she would go to sleep at night, she would feel guilty about all the food that she'd eaten that day, and then make intentions as to how everything's going to be different tomorrow. She's going to eat lots of vegetables. She's going to intermittent fast. She's going to do keto. She's going to do all this kind of stuff. But of course, life gets in the way. She wakes up the next day and then busy life, and she needs to kind of just grab something to eat quickly. And then already she feels like she's lost. And while her grand intentions have fallen apart rapidly, it gives her permission to eat whatever she wants, and therefore guaranteeing not that she'll lose weight, but potentially that she can gain weight. So what you're going to hear in this hypnosis session is what's called a pattern interrupt, interrupting that approach and providing an alternative. And in my experience, when people successfully lose weight, it's that they do little things consistently over a period of time. And when you do those little things, they become bigger things gradually, because progress builds on progress, which builds on progress. If the intention is to make radical revolutionary change instantaneously, it tends to be short-lived. And that's why so many people are going to set resolutions to lose weight and have already given up within a week or two, because it's based on revolutionary change. When you base things on evolutionary change, and that is tiny incremental changes, so walking 5 minutes more than you did the day before, having slightly less on your plate, having less sugar or processed foods than you did the day before, eating slightly later in the day or finishing slightly earlier. Any of these things represent tiny progress, which means that every day becomes a win. And from a biochemical perspective, the reward chemical in the brain is called dopamine, and you get a dopamine hit if you feel like you've had a win. Now, if you've got 17 different ways to make progress on any given day, it's highly likely that you're going to win. If, however, you have to eat perfectly for the entire day, it's highly likely that you're going to have a lose. And when you have a lose, the emotions tend to give feelings of shame and guilt and regret, and quite often stress, because you've got this dissonance of wanting something and then not living up to that standard, which the stress chemical in the body is cortisol. So that makes it, something undesirable. And it's not unusual for people to get in these loops where every day is, I make a joke that I say, if I ever wanted to write a best-selling diet book, I would call it the Tomorrow Diet, because everyone wants to start their diet tomorrow. And while there's humor in that, as a weight loss hypnotherapist, which I did for the first 3 years of my hypnotherapy career, what I found is that it's appealing to have the belief that you're going to start next year, next month, next week, next day, because it gives you permission to eat whatever you want in the moment, and therefore guaranteeing that you not only don't lose weight, but quite often you gain weight. So this hypnosis session is designed to reward tiny incremental progress and to come up with a thinking strategy that enables you to learn from setbacks and mistakes, but to make every day the possible day of making progress and improvements. This was obviously created for someone else. If you're listening to this and you want help from a hypnotherapist in losing weight, there'll be a link nearby where you can book a free 30-minute consultation call with me. But you might find that this is sufficient to enable you to get on that track of making that tiny incremental progress. So find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in, and on the outward breath, close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, notice that you can pay more attention to the sound of my voice. Breathing in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just getting a sense that tension, stress, or anxiety is leaving your body in that outward breath. That's right. As you breathe in and breathe out, notice that on your outward breath, you can elongate that breath, allowing it to take slightly longer for your breath to leave your body. As you do so, notice that your next breath in is deeper than it was before, enabling you to breathe more of that resourceful feeling of relaxation in, and exhaling more of that tension that's leaving your body. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that you're lying in bed. It's at the end of the day. And I want you to focus your attention on the areas of progress that you've made in your life that day. I want you to think of the most important change that you want to make, and just reflect on those things that you've done that day that was a tiny incremental improvement on the day before. And perhaps you can just say these things to yourself in your mind's ear. Or perhaps they'll come to you as visual memories as you relive doing the thing that represented progress in that area. I also want you to reflect on what, with the benefit of hindsight, you would rather you didn't do that day. So I want you to think of one thing and imagine doing it, and then imagine rewinding it to before you've done it, and then imagine replacing it with what you would have rather have done instead. Not perfectly, but incrementally improving on what you actually did. Therefore, you can reflect on your wins, but learn from those areas of your life that have more opportunity for improvement. And maybe there's 2 or 3 things that you could rewind and replace with a version of you doing it as you would rather have done it. And then I want you to imagine the following day. I want you to think of all the different things that you could do that represents incremental progress. Perhaps you could eat slightly more foods that are high in water content, and that's progress. Even if you walked for just 1 or 2 minutes more than you normally do, or a few more steps, that's progress. Drinking more water or healthy teas, that's progress. I want you to imagine having slightly smaller portion on your plate, or perhaps not having a second helping, and that feels like progress. Maybe it's starting to eat later in the day or finishing earlier, and that's progress. I want you to accept the suggestion that there are so many ways that you could make tiny incremental progress, and imagine that you're doing those things the next day, actually being in your body and doing those things. If it's eating later, perhaps feeling that you're in your body, looking at a watch or a clock before you start eating, noticing that it's later than it normally would be. Or if it's finishing eating earlier in the day, again, seeing yourself, notice the time. And progress could even be realizing that it's okay to fall asleep while you're still hungry. In fact, falling asleep when you're hungry is the best way to train your body to accept that you already have excess energy stored in your body fat cells. And when you sleep, your body enters a mild form of ketosis all by itself, starting to feed on your body fat cells, turning them into a form of energy in your blood that enables you to still have energy while you're sleeping, and giving you enough energy to enable you not to need breakfast if you don't want it. I want you to think that there are so many ways of making progress, that this game is winnable, that you're able to wake up the next morning feeling optimistic, that no matter what happens during the day, no matter how busy you are, how stressed you are, you know that you could make 1 or 2 key choices that represents incremental progress, that evolution. And most people think that if you make 1% improvement every day for a year, that you end up with a 365% improvement in your life. And that just isn't true. Because it's very hard to only make 1% improvement. The intention to make 1% improvement normally means you're making 2, 3, 4, 5% improvement. And that improvement gets built on the previous day's improvement, which builds on the previous day's improvement, which can create a snowball effect of momentum. That those tiny 1% improvements all add up. And I want you to create an image in your mind of the kind of things you could be doing 3 months from now. 3 months of tiny improvements. What could that be like? And what impact would 3 months of tiny improvements have on your body shape? Feelings of self-esteem and confidence, but the belief that you're now in control. that the steering wheel that hasn't been working is now working, and that sometimes you're in the fast lane and sometimes you're in the slower lane, but who cares so long as you're making progress? A day when you're making 1% progress is in the slow lane, and 2 or 3% progress is in the slightly faster lane. And there'll be certain days that you make 10 or 15% progress and you're in a faster lane. And these lanes are taking you into a future that is desirable for you. And I want you to think of something important that's happening in the future that you would like an improved body shape. Maybe a holiday, maybe a key event, a party, a celebration. And I want you to imagine that as you make these tiny improvements, improvements build on improvements, confidence builds on confidence, and things get easier and easier. And imagine these tiny improvements are taking your future to how you would want it to be. Perhaps see yourself on holiday wearing the clothes that you would want, in the body shape that you would want. Make that connected to these tiny improvements so that as you make these improvements, it feels that you're gravitating towards a future version of you, living life in the way you want to live your life. And if you've got that compelling vision of a future that is desirable and aspirational only to you, let me know by nodding your head. And realize that all of this comes from tiny incremental progress. I want you to imagine the biggest canyons, the biggest valleys, the largest rivers in the world. They came from tiny incremental differences over time. Erosion, the wind, the rain, tiny differences compounded over time created dramatic differences. And you can have the body that you want. You just can't have it instantly. So you are now unlocking your ability to, at any point in time, catch yourself in the moment and decide to do something different. No day is ever a lost day. No day is a write-off, because at any point in time you can make one choice, one decision, focus on one improvement, do one thing you normally wouldn't do, and that represents growth. That represents progress. And that takes your life towards this future that you aspire to have. Find yourself back there in your bed thinking about the plans, and realize that when the game is winnable, you want to play. And when the game isn't winnable, you don't want to play. And if you're ready to make a commitment to yourself to make plans that are achievable, winnable, that enable every day to give you the chance of making even just 1% progress, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to think of something that you've either done today or will do today that will be the one thing that guarantees progress today. Make a commitment to yourself to do that thing. And decide where you need to be and what you need to do that. And realize that if you do that, you've already won. And if you don't, you can just do something else. It's time to return to the present as you listen to my voice, finding all parts of you there in the moment, in the present. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get a sense that you're in your own physical body right now. I'll count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, and when you awaken, you will have a release of optimism and a deep-seated belief that progress is more important than perfection, and that you have all the resources necessary to make continued incremental progress in your life. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.